The house of worship means to me solitude.
Das Gotteshaus ist für mich ein besonderer Ort, nicht nur weil ich Gott dort dienen kann, sondern weil es für mich ein zweites Zuhause ist, wo ich mit Gott reden kann.
To me it means a sanctuary, a place that we can go to.
C'est également ici où je reçois les bénédictions et où je reçois les paroles venant de notre Seigneur Dieu.
The house of worship means home.
The house of worship is an escape for everyday life.
C'est là où je peux prier, où je peux confier mes problèmes et avoir une solution à tous les questionnements que j'ai dans la vie.
Gotteshaus ist für mich ein Ort der Zuflucht, in dem ich zugleich auch mein Anker suche.
Whether you watch because of the architecture, the engineering, or the stories, Blueprint has allowed you and I to dive in and explore the buildings inside the Church of Christ. Join us as we take a look behind the scenes of some of your favorite stories on the show and see what's in store for Blueprint. I'm Nan Zapanta. As an industrial designer, I spent years admiring the great designs of products, vehicles, and architecture from all over the world. But I found architecture to be the most captivating. I love learning about each building, discovering the characteristics that make it unique, and understanding the purpose behind its design. Most of all, I love hearing the stories behind each structure and seeing God's plan in putting it all together. Join us as we discover the blueprint of the buildings and structures inside the Iglesia Cristo.
And my favorite part of the house of worship is the choir loft because I get to sing praises to our Almighty God.
The front part, which has the seal,
is all the woodwork that you see as you enter the main sanctuary and near the choir loft.
Is its architecture. It's very unique, very different from what you see from other religions.
The towers, because they make the house of worship look more significant and make them look really big.
Is unique architectural design because I think the uniqueness of its design will make the passersby curious about what the inside of the church looks like.
For me, it's the main function hall because I feel not only coming to church for worship service, but I feel that socializing with the other fellow brethren is also a big part of being part of the church and being in a church.
Actually, the landscaping. I really like the landscaping because it makes our house of worship look that much more beautiful.
It has to be the chandelier. Chandelier, just because whenever you walk into a place with a chandelier, it just shows so much elegance. And with elegance, I think it shows importance.
Are the pews. I know it's not something I guess most people would say, but for me it sort of represents safety. Whenever I'm praying in the chapel by myself or even when I'm in the congregation for a worship service.
I'm often asked what my favorite part of the house of worship is, and like many of you, I struggle to have just one. The show's given us the opportunity to not only see the features of the buildings, but also learn about the purpose of every part. Like the time we were in Bayonne, New Jersey, and the contractor was telling us about how they had to raise the roof, literally. Let's take a look. To increase the height of the roof, the team began building right above the existing roof. It was an ingenious solution that provided the crew a safe and solid platform to build on. This also allowed for the construction to begin inside simultaneously. With the existing roof still in place, it protected the interior from any debris or outside elements. The construction ultimately added 10 feet on top of the existing building. Once the new roof and ceiling were completed, the old roof was torn down, and the result is the vaulted ceiling we see today.
One of the hardest part of this building is raising the roof.
And then what was the reason for raising the roof? Why couldn't you just keep it low?
I've seen a lot of renovation. I've done a lot of renovation. I saw this building, I said to myself, there's so much potential just to leave it flat and low. So I asked the permission for the administration and they allowed me.
How many of you guys have seen that episode before? If you haven't, make sure to check it out on incmedia.org/blueprint and share with us what your favorite part of the episode was by tweeting us and using the hashtag #INCBlueprint. I forgot to mention that one of the coolest things about the Jersey renovation is that one of the crew members was also part of the documentation team, and he was able to give us unique insight into the construction process. What did that mean to you?
It meant a lot because, like you said, it was our own chapel, so to be honest, everybody was pretty much working like a perfectionist.
So if you've seen the show, or if this is your first one, we spend a lot of time not only on the stories behind the structure, but also the people impacted by the building. We've met construction teams, neighbors, realtors, and even individuals who were introduced to the Church of Christ simply by the building moving into their neighborhood, like Julio, who I met in Corona.
Me imagino yo que también la cúpula es nueva.
And while he spoke very little English, and I spoke very little Spanish, we understood each other as we spoke about the worship building that now stands right across the street from his home. Neat, right? Sometimes, even in all of our preparations, we're still surprised by what we can learn from the things that we didn't even consider, like Furman Senga, the architect of the House of Worship in Park Ridge. We hoped he could share details of the worship building, but somehow he shared more than that. Let's take a look.
So we started with basically a canvas, a good canvas of good bones. And what we did, we kind of made it even more beautiful, and we added details to it.
The roof of this particular house of worship is one of, if not the most prevalent feature of the house of worship. It's sometimes referred to as the roof building because of the exaggerated angle of the roof and how closely it extends to the ground. Is there a functional reason for that?
Functionally is to get the water away from the building.
Oh, so it's really to get moisture, rain or snow
exactly
off the roof.
We tried to change it. Actually, if you look at the front elevation, we trimmed that overhang. It was overhanging much further. We trimmed it, yes. We trimmed it so that it further aligned, and now you see the detail.
That's really awesome. And then from my understanding, there was a spire on top, because I see kind of like a bubble up there. What is that?
Yeah, that's for to allow some lighting. There was a spire there that we decided to remove. Because we wanted to make changes to it. We didn't like how prominent it was, so we decided to remove it. The main accents were going to be the elevation and the step-up.
In your opinion, does this stick out as far as in the community?
Oh yes, it does. It does stick out, absolutely. I remember during construction, I had my company sign, and I got phone calls.
Oh really?
Yes. From people calling me.
That's pretty awesome.
That's
yes. Awesome. So they just noticed it off the road? And...
They did. After that, I had contractors seeing some of my other project with my name on it and calling me, hey, you're the guy who did that church in Park Ridge.
Yeah, I'm really excited. Now, we often get asked questions about the show on social media, and we figured now's a good time to answer some of them. So one of the questions we got was from @JobelIsCool. Her question was, since there are so many houses of worship being renovated or built within the upcoming year, which location do you plan on visiting next? Or which locations are you excited to see next? Well, actually, there are so many that are being built, and honestly, it's so tough to keep up. We are planning on shooting some in Canada and just across North America. And honestly, I'm excited to see each and every one of them, no matter how large or small the house of worship is, because each time it offers a new story, a new experience, and it's always just a great blessing to visit any house of worship. So another question comes from @ChelsleyMay. Her question actually was, out of all of the stories you've heard about the newly established houses of worship, was there a heartwarming story you resonated with? Yeah, I mean, if you've seen the show, all the stories are truly heartwarming, and they've all resonated with me. But if I could name one that truly resonated with me, was the story of Brother Ryan from the local congregation of Chicago. So in the Chicago episode, we were able to sit down and chat with him. And his story really resonated with me because he was the chapel caretaker there in Chicago. And my family and I, we were the caretakers of the congregation of Houston when I was growing up. So his story truly resonated with me. You know, I understood the challenges that he faced, but also the great fulfillment that comes with being able to care for a house of worship. So his story really did resonate with me, and it's definitely a memorable interview from all of my experiences. So our next question comes from @Iris M. Kahalhal. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. I'm sorry if I butchered it. But her question is, how long did it take to build the templo, which is the central temple of the Church of Christ? Construction began in 1982, and the building was dedicated in July 1984 in time for the 70th anniversary of the Church of Christ. So another question was from @Christine G. Her question was, what are the main elements of each chapel and what makes it easily distinguishable and recognized as an INC chapel? Well, the main one that's just consistent throughout is, of course, the seal of the INC, the Church of Christ. That seal can always be found typically on the front facade, or even on the side or in the back, and even on any signage that's at the front of the building. So the seal is clearly what makes it the most distinguishable, but architectural elements would be steeples. Typically it's an A-frame design. Not always though, especially with renovated buildings that are already pre-existing. But yes, the A-frame design along with steeples and intricate design work on the front facade in the molding is typically something we can find that distinguishes the INC Church of Christ houses of worship. So those elements, if you see those elements, those pretty much define the design and look of the INC houses of worship. So another question is from @Franco Valencia. His question was, which chapel has a historical past within the community, city, or country? Well, from all the houses of worship that we've featured, I mean, to a certain degree, all of them have a historical tie to the city that they're in. So all of them have that element. I would say that one of the most significant ones would probably have to be Chicago. It's a historical building, and its past is deeply rooted in that community. So Chicago definitely was one of those that had a clear presence in the community, even in its past. And I'm sure that as the show goes on, we'll stumble upon even more houses of worship that had a significant presence in the community in the past. Now, if you have any more questions, go ahead and tweet us or even send us a video on Instagram. Don't forget to tag us at incmedia news and use the hashtag AskBlueprint. For answers to your questions, check them out at Twitter using the hashtag AskBlueprint. Now, another question we often get asked about the show are the animations that we do. How do we do it? Who does it? What does it take? We answered a lot of those questions on the episode for Los Angeles with our very own Richie Ferreira, who was born and raised in LA and gave us an inside look at the house of worship. Let's take a look.
When we do an episode, we also go through the parts of the chapel that we're going to highlight.
Cool.
And eventually that becomes a focal point in the model building process. Right, and so once we start animating, we could just grab a group and bring it down. Whoa, it's turning. Bring it down into the area that it's supposed to be in, like this. And we would just use those components to animate when we start animating the portions of the episode.
Now, how many of you have seen that episode? If you haven't already, I suggest you watch it today. Don't forget to bring some tissues with you. Fun fact about the animation though, our editors take an additional day adding sound effects to the various parts of construction of the house of worship. Like this. The original steeple was completely removed and replaced by a newly constructed one that was designed and fabricated off-site and later installed with the use of a crane. Or this. Primarily as brick. Some molding design was added at the very front facade of the chapel, as well as a steeple. This is a completely new steeple, which is a typical design element of most INC houses of worship. The seal and nameplate are major additions to the exterior, and were ordered from the Philippines, so there's always a consistent design. The only adjustment that's made is the size of the seal and the size of the nameplate. For Lubbock, the seal is 5 feet in diameter, which is fairly large because it's a very big building. These new additions are... Now, many of you recently shared videos about why you watch Blueprint, and we wanted to thank you for always tuning in. Here are some of our favorite messages from all of you.
Alors, ma vidéo préférée de la maison d'adoration était celle de Jersey City, parce que dans cette vidéo, ils ont montré comment l'église a été construite et aussi la construction de l'église a été faite. La rénovation de l'église a été faite par des membres de l'Église du Christ.
The episode featuring the local congregation of Chicago, Illinois, I really liked it because it focused on the importance of keeping things classic, keeping things original, and yet adding a modern twist to it.
It has to be the local congregation of Bloomingdale, Illinois, for its chapel is very unique and has amazing features within it.
This, right?
And then there's the secret door.
Secret door.
So the molding does cover up
the framing, really, just to camouflage it with the rest of the
Can we open
wall.
it?
Sure, yeah. So it just leads into there.
My favorite episode of Blueprint is the struggle between old and new, which features the locale of Chicago. And just because I personally saw the chapel before it was renovated and then after, and I was also able to watch the production process of the episode.
Meine Lieblingsepisode von Blueprint ist die Episode What Makes a Landmark, weil in dieser Episode gezeigt wird, wie verschiedene Gotteshäuser errichtet werden. Und das erinnerte mich stark an das Gotteshaus hier in Dortmund, in dem ich gerade sitze, was vor 4 Jahren umrenoviert worden ist und somit einen Wandel von einem zurückgebliebenen Kirchengebäude zu einem schönen Gotteshaus gemacht hat.
We're so thankful to have each and every one of you as part of this journey. Now every month we try to post some of our favorite behind-the-scenes photos of you guys, so you get to meet the team and all the wonderful individuals from the different cities that come out and help us in filming these episodes. We know these episodes wouldn't be possible without their help, so thank you. Now here's a quick look behind the scenes of what it takes to put together an episode of Blueprint, and some of our funny moments, including never before seen footage of our first time out in the field. Now it's a distinct building when you look around the neighborhood, and I'm really excited to go check out not just the outside, but what's on the inside. Let's go check it out. What? Why? Oh. Do I need you to pass me, or I'll stay?
I think I'll try the on-cam as I'm talking first.
If you had asked me a few years ago if I'd be hosting a show on incmedia.org, I'd probably say no. I'm usually behind the scenes or building sets, so preparing to shoot for the first time was all very new to me.
Just the T-zone in here because he's wearing glasses. Oh, Auntie Disney's here.
And while Bakersfield was not the first episode aired, it was the first time we had ever shot in the field. And it being a new show, we weren't sure where it'd take us, or what we'd discover.
So we're gonna go and scan?
Yeah.
Talk to scan?
Yeah, talk to Scan. Do you know when
I'm
they
gonna ask
scan
him.
people?
What you gonna ask him?
I don't know.
Let's see what you come up with. Let's go. Do your There's your camera, sorry.
Oh, this is my camera. Hi, I'm Nan Zaponte. I'm here at Bakersfield, California. Since then, we've gotten to travel to various parts of North America to witness dedications, walk through construction sites, check out some of the new spaces. I believe there's some new rooms that were added to the structure, and sit down with preservationists and historians. We've met neighbors and we've faced freezing temperatures.
They were in Saskatchewan, Regina. It's in the center of North America.
And survived Chicago's sticky humidity. I'm trying to find Willis Tower. I think these guys might know. Excuse me, do you guys know where Willis Tower is? All right, that way? All right. Now, we always think of pioneers as being older, but this group of 20 and 30-year-olds changed that for us. Want to share a bit of how it was growing up here? This was one of my favorite interviews, also because they made us laugh so much, we had to hurry to make sure we didn't run out of sun during the shoot.
We're all gonna walk away.
I've also gotten a chance to interview in Spanish, which is nerve-wracking for me, because I speak very little Spanish. But if that's where the story is, that's where we go.
No, poquito español.
We're on our way to Roseville, a city just east of San Francisco. I've learned lots of
California.
valuable lessons while being part of the show, like keeping track of which plaid shirt I wore when we're shooting 3 episodes within 3 days. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Blueprint, where in the end, everything is part of God's plan. Yep, that's right. 3 episodes in 3 days.
That one was good, but Jody was in the shot, like coming straight up at the camera. I saw a man moving and I was like, oh, they're done.
While these marathon shoots are often draining, they often provide the team an opportunity to immerse ourselves in all things Blueprint before we go back to our desks to edit, write, build models, and animate. But one of the things I'm still working on is how to say bye and end an interview.
And thank you for showing me around.
Well, thanks again. Thanks again, Furman. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure, my
Thank you so
honor
much.
to have been given the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you.
We're going to be doing a lot more of this good work.
Great, great. Thanks again. Thanks again, Furman. Maybe it's my curiosity, or maybe it's just how much I enjoy speaking with the individuals we've met that keeps me from saying goodbye. Whatever it is, I can't wait to see who else we meet in the future and where else this show will take us. Want to skip? One arm in arm? Do a little heel click, you know? Trivia question. Which episode did we shoot first? Now, I'm not sure you caught it, but the very first episode we shot was for the House of Worship in Bakersfield. Now, I gotta tell you, I was super nervous that time, and it wasn't just me, it was actually the whole team. Holdings and pews were made in the US. The chairs in the pulpit were handmade and shipped from the Philippines. So you can see all the design. Now, how many of you know of a worship building of the Church of Christ that's currently under renovation or construction? Yep, I'm sure all of you raised your hands. There are so many buildings being worked on this year, and we're so excited for the possibility of exploring them with you. Here's a quick look at some upcoming episodes of Blueprint.
You know, that was designed that way to let the sound come out from the pipes, from the pipe organ.
We're on our way to Roseville, a city just east of Sacramento, California. So you in? You excited about the new season of Blueprint? Well, make sure to tag a friend, 2, maybe even 100. Now, to answer your question about what my favorite part of the House of Worship is, I'd have to say it's the podium and choir loft area of the House of Worship. There's just something indescribable about those parts of the House of Worship. The best words I can think of are it's solemn, it's peaceful, and oftentimes it's the most beautiful parts of the House of Worship. So those are definitely the parts that are my favorite. But what I love the most is that every detail isn't just a standalone feature, but every part is actually working together for the bigger picture. Thanks for joining us today. Please keep watching Blueprint, where in the end, everything is part of God's plan.